This video will look at the route of the radial nerve through the upper limb. This video will highlight some of the important structures that the radial nerve is associated with in the upper limb. It is important to note that this drawing is not in the anatomical position and that the forearm is pronated so that you can look at the posterior aspect of the forearm and the hand. First of all, let's look at the overall path. The radial nerve travels from the axilla to the hand, supplying motor and sensory innervation to the upper limb. Now let's look at this path in more detail. The radial nerve begins in the axilla and originates from the posterior cord of the brachial plexus. The posterior cord is formed from the posterior divisions of all the trunks of the brachial plexus, and therefore receives fibers from every root value within the brachial plexus. This is why the radial nerve contains C5, 6, 7, 8, and T1 root values. From the brachial plexus, the nerve travels posteriorly. It wraps around the posterior aspect of the radius in a groove called the radial sulcus, or the spiral groove. Here, it gives sensory innervation to the lower aspect of the posterior arm and motor supply to the triceps muscle. The nerve then travels down the lateral aspect of the humerus and continues onto the lateral aspect of the cubital fossa. It is sometimes considered as part of the contents of the cubital fossa as it runs most laterally of the structures. The nerve then briefly runs on the anterolateral aspect of the forearm before splitting into the superficial and deep branches. The deep branch of the radial nerve travels posteriorly and passes through the lamina of the supinator. After crossing the supinator, the continuation of the nerve is then called the posterior interosseous nerve, carrying fibers from C7 and C8. The superficial branch travels along the posterolateral aspect of the forearm and forms the roof of the anatomical snuff box. It finally gives sensory supply to the dorsal or posterior aspect of the hand.